Hey guys, Randy from R&M Reef Creations. Just wanted to say welcome to the channel and give you a rundown of what you'll be seeing on the channel. We're going to do a lot of tide pooling videos, a lot of home reef aquarium videos, a lot of natural reef style aquariums that I do at home here in the Philippines. I'm an American living in the Philippines now, and I love it, and I want to share it with the world and show people what the Philippines really like, especially people that are in the aquarium hobby. Also, we're going to do some jungle videos. We're going to do some cultural videos. We're going to do some freshwater videos, freshwater rivers and lakes. They got some really cool freshwater stuff here for people that are big in the freshwater hobby. I also dabble in the freshwater hobby. I love it, just like I do the saltwater hobby. So there's going to be a lot to see, a lot of new action, and my plan is to start posting weekly videos. So stay tuned, and thank you guys. Like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you very much. So this is called a Medusa worm. Medusa worms are filter feeders, and they often get out in the low tide as the tide's falling, and they let out these little tentacles out of their mouth right up here and just filter feed on small particles floating through the water. And they do the same as the tide comes back in. When they're used to being out of the tide like this, they'll be able to be fine and survive, because I can't even try to pick him up. If he does, he just completely deflates, and they're really, really sticky. So this area in town is called Big Rock, and it's a really popular place for people to come out and collect conch to eat. And then also in the early morning before the sun rises, guys will be out here spearfishing as well. You know, the sea here provides a lot of food for the people here in town, so there's not a day that you don't see people out here collecting something to eat. And the conch are very tasty. A little pufferfish just swam by, and so you can see the tide still falling currently. Today we've got a -4 tide, which is nice and low. Gives you opportunity to really get out and see some cool stuff. So hopefully we'll find some really neat corals to look at today, maybe some oddball fish. Trying to find some stuff for you guys that not everybody gets to see every day. Hope you guys enjoy watching. Oh, here's a little wrasse that jumped out of the water. This happens a lot with them, and he's still alive. They like to bury themselves in the sand. So there's a really pretty wrasse right here. We'll get him in the water, and you see, right into the sand. Very, very cool. They actually have a protective bubble of this slime coating that they'll put around their body when they're in the sand, and it protects them from predators and low tides and things of that nature. Keeps them really safe. So this is interesting. I wanted to show people this. So you have a piece of driftwood here that's in this tidal pool, and driftwood is very common in the ocean, just like it is in lakes and rivers. And I actually am finally setting up my 90-gallon tall again after fixing the leak that we had in it, and I'm doing a driftwood, reef tank. So there's reef rock and there's driftwood in there. So I want to be able to showcase a different way to set up a tank. A lot of people in the hobby think it's a big no-no to have wood in the tank, but it does not hurt anything. And corals can actually grow onto the wood and attach to the wood. You know, softies, zoas, zinnias, things of that nature will grow all over it. Now here's a Medusa worm in the water. Really, really cool. And he's got his filter over there, digging in the sand for stuff. But they come in all different colors, many different colors. So this one's more like a burgundy brown with a gray back. Really, really cool. Very, very neat. And again, just tide pooling as far as you can see. On average, I do 5 to 8 miles a day tide pooling, just walking through tide pools. And generally when we have a negative tide like today, a -4 tide, I can walk for quite a while. I can stay out for about 3 to 4 hours before I get pushed back in. It's a really nice favia. I believe this is a giant favia colony. Really, really cool. Some really neat macroalgae right here. One thing that I find interesting going to these tide pools here in the Indo-Pacific is how many corals, sea sponges, gorgonians, things of that nature that in the hobby we worry about that are out of the water, where here in the wild they're out of the water in the sunlight, in the elements for 3 to 4 hours a day. Obviously it's different than in the aquarium hobby for sure, but it's not as, you don't have to be as concerned if you're doing something with your corals or taking them out for a little while, moving things around. It's not that big of a concern to have them out for 30 to 45 minutes. They're used to it. All corals create like this protective slime coat on them to keep them safe from the dryness during a low tide. I do want to mention that I'm not an expert by any means. I'm a hobbyist. I've been a hobbyist for over 25 years. I made the decision to move down to the Philippines over a year and a half ago. I'm from America originally, on the East Coast. Lived in South Carolina for many years, originally from Massachusetts. But I love the hobby, love nature in general. So on this channel, we're going to be doing a lot of tide pooling, a lot of sea creatures and corals and things of that nature. And then eventually I'd like to take you guys on some jungle trips too, maybe some overnight camping in the jungle, things of that nature. I think that would be really neat to show people that. We do have an area in the jungle here where there's some monkeys and a beautiful river that flows down the mountains all the way to the sea. So I will be doing a video of following that river all the way to the sea to see the different freshwater species and brackish water species we see as we get closer to the sea, because there are a lot of brackish water species that I think people will find very interesting. And it's really interesting, I've been to a few of the rivers here, how many saltwater fish you will see so far up the river. Really interesting. Here's a big sea cucumber right here. Sea cucumbers are very common here in the Philippines. There are many different species, many different sizes. I've found some that are over 2 feet long and 8 inches in circumference, and they get really big here. Not many people on this island eat them. There are other islands that do eat the sea cucumbers, and they actually eat them raw. They take them out of the sea, they'll rinse them, and they slice them up and put them in vinegar with a little bit of chilies. And yeah, I've tried it. It's not that great, but people love it. Also, sea urchin is very common to eat here, which sea urchins I enjoy. Uni, as we know it in the sushi world. I really enjoy that. It's really good. Ooh, here's a really pretty tube anemone over here. Let's see if we can get a shot of this guy. That's a really pretty tube anemone. So tube anemones are different from your Sabea anemones, carpet anemones, long tentacle anemones. So they don't have an exposed foot. Rather, they have this fleshy tube that they'll stick small pieces of crushed coral to and sand to and things of that nature, and be all the way down in the ground. Sometimes they can go a foot or more down into the ground. So they're really, really cool. I have one tube anemone at home, and they're just really fun to watch. When they eat, you can actually see their tentacles pulling food in. It's fun to see. So I'm exploring a new, exploring a new area today. It's 7 a.m. here. Peak is at 7:07, so we're about to hit peak. The water is out as far as it's going to be out today, but I'm exploring this new area that I have not yet explored, so you guys are coming along with me, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see what we can find. There's a nice blue Lynchia starfish. At low tide, they shove themselves down into the rocks. As the tide's falling, they're usually out looking for food, and then once it gets to a certain point, they tuck themselves in under rocks. It's amazing how far into a small hole some of these giant starfish can really shove themselves down into. Really cool. Chocolate chip starfish, as people know them in the hobby, are very common here. I mean, I've posted videos on my TikTok and Instagram where I've walked through fields of starfish. I mean, just fields of them. They're everywhere. You can hardly walk without stepping on them. There's a nice little serpent star right here. Let's see what else we can find. So out here in the Big Rock area, as soon as you get past the Big Rock out here to the end of where the ocean drops off, it actually drops down to about 25 to 30 feet. And years ago, apparently some divers went diving out here, and 2 of them never came back up, is the story here in town. But when you go to the Big Rock, and I'll do a video on that one day, the Big Rock is basically, it looks like it's floating. There's water all the way around it, there's corals all the way around it, and you can just see way down in there. And as you walk out here, there are just giant holes. that go way down just into darkness, a deep blue darkness. It's really cool. So once I finally get a GoPro, because right now I'm doing all this with my phone, when I finally get a GoPro, I'd like to drop a GoPro down in some of those holes and see what we can see down there. I think that would be really, really cool. But the corals are epic. The corals are unbelievable that you find out here. That's really cool. And I'd like to mention also how fast the corals repair themselves here is just extraordinary. We get a lot of big typhoons here, and after a typhoon comes through, it's amazing how the landscape can change. And some corals are gone, and then a few weeks later, you're already seeing new growth and you're seeing new corals sprout up. It's just amazing. Nature is incredible, and the way it repairs itself and bounces back. Obviously, we can help for sure protect these coral reefs, and with aquaculturing and growing corals. Currently, there's a really neat crab. I call these teddy bear crabs. They're called that in the trade. Sometimes certain aquarium stores call them that. They're a really furry crab. Really cool. Big claws, have a lot of fur on them. They're really, really neat crabs. Good little scavengers. Good to have in your tank if you do a lot of heavy feeding. They help come out and clean up. So we've got a turbo snail here. That would be a cat-eye turbo, what I've always called a cat-eye turbo. Oh, there we go. Really cool. A lot of turbo snails here, a lot of Trochus snails, cowrie snails, the bumblebee snails, and many different species of nearite snail here as well. These guys are really cool. So this is a snail, but the way it comes out of its shell is unbelievable. Its shell pretty much disappears, and they fan out really, really big. I've known these, excuse me, in the trade before to be bubble snails, but you see how big the foot is. The foot is huge. Let's get some water over here so I can show you. The foot on these is just massive, absolutely massive, and it can stretch out to about 8 inches or so. You guys are really neat snails. I've tried to keep them in an aquarium. I haven't had any success. I'm not sure on their diet. They're called pump boats, or palm boats, some people call them on different islands. Got basically a little weed eater motor on them with a little propeller, and those guys go out early morning, go out fishing, pulling nets, and some guys do spear fishing out in the deep. Some guys have traps. It's really neat. Blue Lyngia. I was always told in the hobby in the beginning when I first started seeing those starfish become popular in the hobby, people said, oh, they can't touch air, they can't touch air. If they touch air, they'll die. Not true. They are in the air for hours a day and they're just fine. I have a Blue Lyngia in my aquarium at home and does a wonderful job. They're mainly nocturnal, so during the day you're not going to see much of them. Oh, cool. Check this out, guys. Got a nice anemone in this rock over here that's completely out of the water. Look at that guy. Wow. Got himself a very nice hole. Very cool. Look at that. And there he goes. Sucking in. Very beautiful anemone. Usually when the tide goes down, a lot of these anemones are hosted by domino damsels and clownfish, and usually together. I see them hosting together a lot. Clarkie clownfish, saddleback clownfish, ocellaris clownfish. And when the tide goes out, they'll leave the anemone if it's going to be exposed. And when the tide comes back in, if you're out here, you'll see them come back in with the tide and go right back to their anemone, which is pretty incredible. Love anemones. Anemones are one of my favorite things, so it's very cool to see that. Very cool to see that. Some fish jumping out here at the end of the edge of the reef. The closer you get out to the water, the more you find. Ooh, I see a spider conch. People love eating these here, and they are very good here. Wonderful sand sifters in the aquarium hobby. Let's see if he's alive. Nope, it's a hermit crab. Faked me out. Anyways, that's a spider conch shell. These guys are great at keeping your sand bed clean, but I recommend having them in a very large tank. And if you have big rock structures, make sure they are solid because they can knock some big rocks over, believe it or not. Fun fact about saltwater fish. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it's still about 90% of the saltwater fish in the trade are exported from other countries to America. We are getting better with captive bred angelfish, and there's some blennies we're doing now. Tangs, obviously, that's why the yellow tang's coming back and everybody's able to buy yellow tangs again. But a lot of fish are exported from Indonesia and Philippines. Matter of fact, there's a cleaner wrasse right there, if you guys can see him, little blue guy. Blue streak cleaner wrasse. A lot of fish are exported. Matter of fact, the fish store I used to work at in America, we'd order fish from the Philippines quite often. Quite often. It's very expensive, but you get some really beautiful fish. And there is a nice anemone shrimp. on this anemone right here. Really pretty, very pretty anemone too. So the shrimp tend to stay with the anemones as long as they're underwater, but when the water gets really low, they, the clownfish and the domino damsels will kind of swim out and then they'll come back. Oh, there's another anemone shrimp right there. Two of them side by side. Really, really cool. Those are beautiful shrimp. Beautiful shrimp. And over here, aha, perfect example. So here we have a massive carpet anemone, and then you have domino damsels that are waiting in this hole to go back to the anemone. And it is a big school of domino damsels. They're all shooting under the rocks right now, terrified because I'm here. And this guy's got a little bit of food here. A little fish that he is feeding on. That's quite the carpet anemone. My hand's at 10 inches. And excuse my fingernails, I dyed my wife's hair for her, so that's hair dye. So just to give you a shot of how big that anemone is. Very, very cool. And there are domino damsels hiding everywhere. Look at that. So cool. Snap a couple shots of that. That's pretty cool. All right, guys. I'm going to do some more looking around. I'll turn the video back on here in a minute and see if we find some other cool stuff. Hey guys, Randy here from RM Reef Creations, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out on yet another tide pooling adventure with me. As I said in the video before, there is going to be a lot of videos of tide pooling, a lot of videos of home reef aquariums, a lot of videos of Filipino culture, and all the things I experienced here in the Philippines as an American living in the Philippines. As well as we're going to do some jungle videos, some freshwater videos, chasing down some freshwater fish. There's actually wild arowanas here in the rivers and lakes, so that's going to be cool to find. Anyways, just want to say I thank you and I appreciate you guys, all of you that follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and now YouTube. I appreciate all of you, and thank you very much, and I hope to keep bringing you some awesome content, keep showing you guys stuff that people don't get to see every day. Yeah, thanks guys.